You know, navigating this long road of life can be confusing, can be draining. What do I mean by that? I'm so glad you asked me. It's time for Grace Points. So, navigating this life is often challenging. Let's make it practical. Years ago, in this mysterious land called the internet, there was something that we called MapQuest. That's right, MapQuest. And if you remember MapQuest, you probably still do the Running Man and the Cabbage Patch when you're invited to a party. But anyway, MapQuest gave you turn-by-turn directions that you would print out and that you would put in your car and drive to your destination. After MapQuest, we had GPS. Even though GPS had been around in the government forever, we finally had it in the car. And my first one was a Garmin, and it looked like a little TV set. And GPS gave you directions, and those directions were far more reliable than the gas station directions you were accustomed to getting when you'd pull over when you were lost. Because GPS gave you directions from a different perspective, a higher perspective. GPS was guiding you based on satellite data. And it would take you wherever you needed to go, not just based on where you started, but based on where you were. If you got lost, if you got turned around, GPS was literally recalculating in order to get you to your destination based on your current lost location. Well, we all have an internal spiritual GPS. I know you've heard preachers talk about God's positioning system forever, but just go with me for a second on this one. Romans chapter 8, verse 14 says, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God." We have a tendency to look for direction absolutely everywhere. In fact, the most profound question you're asking yourself right now is, where am I headed? And at best, sometimes we're feeling around in the dark until something makes sense. But God gives us spiritual direction from a higher perspective. I know right now all you can see is the immediate. You see the road right in front of you, but God sees it from a God perspective. He sees it from a view you can't even comprehend. He takes in your strengths, your weaknesses, your environment, His expectations for your life, and He maps out for you the best route, not just to success, but to eternity with Him. And I know that you've gotten knocked off course a few times, that you've been lost, derailed a few times. You feel as though you are nowhere near where you started, and you feel like you're way off course. Well, God has a way of getting you back on course because He's constantly recalculating based on where you are, not based on where you started. Who cares about where you started? All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. It matters where you end this journey because God is leading you to Himself. And I know that sometimes, even when you're asking God what you should do, it feels like heaven is leading you in circles. Like He's taking you the long route. But you can trust God even when He takes you the long route, even when He's taking you in circles, because His route is not just the best position, but it's a place of peace. It's a place of protection, because anywhere with Jesus, we can safely go. And that's the beauty of knowing that the Spirit of God is leading us. There's always direction for us. The question for the believer is not whether or not we have direction. The question for the believer is whether or not we're listening. Because there's direction for every road in life. Are you listening? Who are you listening to today? I pray that you're listening to the Spirit of God, that you'll let grace lead you, that you'll follow the leader. Anyway, it's always good to see you. Looking forward to seeing you awesome people out there in Grace Point land next week. This is Grace Points. God bless you.